of these, and you have different colors, and they're all absolutely beautiful. So I absolutely love this quilt block. So we are making this quilt block as block 25 of 26 quilt blocks. It's a sampler quilt for the Live Well, Live Strong quilt. And each one of the quilt blocks represents a different aspect of health and wellness for women. And today's quilt block is shine. So let's all shine, because we have a lot of energy that we would like to share out to others that is positive. So anyways, the quilt behind me is the standard quilt size, 60 by 60 inches. Hi, Liz! Behind me we have the negative space quilt. And so you can see the different quilt blocks that are in here. In fact, anyways, but they have white negative space here. Right here is a bed runner version. And then we also have the foundation paper piecing version that is 20 by 20 inches, and you can see all the foundation paper behind the quilt block. So let's get started, because today we are sewing the shine quilt block. So I'm so glad you guys are here. Let me know where you guys are from and what you guys have planned today. So I am going to make some plans to shine a little brighter, and I hope you guys can too. So I've actually pre-sewn a lot of this block, so I want to share with you how the block actually lays out, and we're going to just kind of reference the pattern here and how you build out the block. So hi Michelle, it's good to see you. Good afternoon. So let's go ahead and flip my camera. And we are going to go do that just like right like this. Okay, so here we have all of the different pieces for this quilt pattern. And there are instructions all right here in the pattern. Hi, Georgina. It's so good to see you from Ontario. So I am in Salt Lake City, Utah. So we have all of the instructions of how to cut your block. And so you go ahead and you do that. And then you've got all of these fantastic pieces. And you can see how it is pre-sewn. So I am going to actually lay this out, and I'm going to set aside some of my pieces that still need to be sewn. You have 4 half square triangles that go in the corners of the block. So I am going to lay these out, and this darker color kind of goes out to the main corner. Okay, so we're going to build this out right like this. So you have your 4 corners are kind of framed with those half square triangles. You have also here a segment unit that's long and rectangular, and these ones we'll go ahead and construct. I went ahead and constructed 3 of these so you guys wouldn't have to worry and watch me construct absolutely everything. And away, we're going to go ahead. So with the original Live Well, Live Strong quilt block with these colors, you've kind of got the sky that's going over to the outside. And then this is more navy blue. So we're going to just go ahead and lay that out. Now, the center of this block is you're just building squares upon squares. But I want to teach you how to match your quilt points here and to get those quilt points matched so everything is the right size it should be. And then you want to make sure that this is squared up, this whole unit right here, that it's squared up to the correct size. And you will see where I have highlighted different areas, and it tells you, please make sure that your triangles are squared up, your half square triangle squares are squared up to the proper size. So, although if you cut things correctly, it should work. Now, so first of all, I'm going to show you how to start building this out, and we're going to work on that. Hold on for just 1 minute. Did I drop some cute little triangles? Oh, here they are right here. So what we are going to do is we are going to build this out. So I've got 2 of these little, in fact, let me go ahead and bring over my pressing mat. So the center of our quilt block, let's maybe lift that up a little bit, is we just start building this, and we're just building out the triangles right like this. Okay, so we've got our alternating triangles, and so when you start this quilt block, you're going to want to just go ahead and sew these together and start building further and further out. So I'm going to just go ahead and do this for you. And you also want to make sure that your points absolutely. Oh, Janet, you get the pattern at Stitches Quilting. It's stitchesquilting.com, and it's the Live Well, Live Strong quilt pattern. So thank you for asking. Good question. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. So we want to make sure we're matching our points. So number one, try to cut accurately. But every so often your triangles can get a little wonky and they won't all be exact. So you also want to make sure that you're sewing a 1/4 of an inch seam. And so you're going to want to go ahead and put that and sew a very consistent 1/4 inch seam. This quilt block is 18 inches, 18.5 by 18.5 inches. So you're sewing some pretty big triangles. And if your triangles start going a little bit off, then you're going to have a problem with that. So let's go ahead and start that. So I have sewn these 2 triangles right like that. I am going to bring over my iron. We're going to open these up and give it a good press. And I'm going to go ahead and put, press the darker fabric over to the darker side. So right like that. Here we go. And then we're going to want to match our seams up in the center. Now, one good tip about matching your seams is when you are stitching, if you feel a hump as you are stitching these, then you've not matched these properly. You want to nest your seams together. So we're going to put this right sides together. I'm going to open this up close to the camera, and you can see I want these seams to nest. So I've got them pressed opposite sides. You could press your seams open, whatever you prefer. I'm going to nest them right together, and my seams, this is going to feel flat. So when I sew this across, I'm going to feel a slight hump coming up to the point of intersection right there, and I'm going to feel one over. But if I feel a hump in the center of that, boy, you want to go ahead and as you're sewing, go ahead and feel what you're sewing. Feel the layers that you're sewing through, and that will help you have more accurate points, just in case something shifted as you are sewing. In fact, let me go ahead and show you this. Because as I was bringing this through, I've got my different seam allowances going opposite directions, but as I was feeding this through the sewing machine kind of pulled this one back. That one's going forward. So I want to feel that, because if I've accidentally sewn that backwards, then I'm going to have a problem with those seams not aligning. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this back in here. And so I want to feel just smoothness, absolute smoothness there. All right, so this is your center of the entire Shine quilt block. And be sure as you're stitching this, have an absolute consistent 1/4 inch seam. So let's go ahead and press this and see if I have my seams matched. So there we go. Let's take a peek. That looks like a really good match to me. So you definitely want to make sure you've got a good seam matching here. The next step that you can do, so you can see I have this unit right here, is you're going to start building out your different triangles as you go along the way. And what you absolutely want to make sure as you are building these out is that the point of your triangle is absolutely at the center point of this. Even if this square, in fact, this is a good example. Let me press this real fast. Sorry. I just always love to see my fabrics pressed. Okay, so you can see this square right here, I feel like is cut slightly wonky, which is funny because I just barely cut this. But when you lay it on here, as you cut a square in half, things can go wrong. So you can see I rather have a larger dog ear on this side and a smaller dog ear over on this side. Hi, Dolores, it's good to see you. So what I'm wanting to do is make sure that these triangles are always hitting the center of my my center unit. So let's go ahead and set this aside because I've already stitched this for you and I don't want to be too repetitive. So you can see here, each time I started stitching this, I would always match to the center of the unit. And if you can see here, as I go along here, these points are going to match with a ruler, okay? And these points are going to match with a ruler too. So you want these points to match because you need this to be 12.5 inches square. Okay, let's go ahead and rotate this. I'm going to put my last triangle on here, and I'm going to show you how I make sure I'm matching up. And let me just press this one more time. I love to have a pressing mat right next to me. So another way to ensure accurate seams is to be constantly pressing and getting that done. You can also trim off your dog ears from the triangle. So those are extra little spots that you just didn't need, and you can trim that off as you can go along. So you can see here, as I'm going to be stitching this to these other units, I want those to be trimmed and for this to be a true 12.5-inch square. Okay, so I'm going to match this. I'm going to line it up here. I want this point, no matter what, needs to hit the center of this shine quilt block, all right? So I am going to pin this right at that center on this side, although I am not going to stitch on this side, and let me show you why, because I really want those points to match up. You've got triangles can stretch and kind of go different wonky ways, so we want to make sure that is completely pinned. Now I am not pinning all the way to the edge. I am giving myself more than 1/4 inch seam there where my pins are coming out, because when I stitch this, I'm going to turn it upside down. My number one priority is to have that triangle match down the center of this block. And now I'm going to stitch this direction, making sure that as I stitch this, I'm going to intersect these seams right here. So there's a cross of seams right here as an X, and I want to make sure that my number one priority, or number two, because first one is to match that point, is to go right through that intersection. So let's go ahead and take off here with our 1/4 inch seam. So here we go. So shining in our lives is really important. We want to shine with cleanliness in our homes so we can feel order. We want to be organized. We want to shine as in our appearances of how we take care of ourselves, which we just want to feel at peace, don't we? And we want to shine in our lives, and we want to feel that light and that goodness. So we do want to start with a basic framework of cleanliness and order. Okay, so you can see that that's almost a perfect match right there. And I've already measured this triangle, and it is for sure a 12.5-inch square triangle as I've gone along here. Okay, so we've gone ahead and finished the center portion. So what are other ways that we can shine in life? We are now going to take our sides of the unit, and we're going to stitch these together. Oh, you know what? Before I do that, I want to show you guys how I sew this unit together right here. And once again, you're building out, and these are my pieces right here. So let's go ahead and stack these together. And I'll show you how to go ahead and do these sides, because these are kind of like the rays of the sun coming out. We're going to want to, let me go ahead and just put this on point so you guys can see this build out. We're going to want to build out our cloud space right over here, and then more of our sunshine rays, correct? So you can see that unit. And then once again, you're going to want to make sure that this is definitely squared up. We're first going to sew these 3 pieces together first. So let's go ahead and match those 90-degree squares, square corners. So I'm going to bring this triangle right sides together with my square. I'm going to match my 90-degree angle, and I'm going to stitch across with my dog ears hanging off the edge. So we're matching that 90-degree angle right there. And we want this to look sharp and smart, because this is one of the bigger blocks on the Live Well, Live Strong quilt. So you don't want this to kind of be sewn in a way, you want it to be sewn in a way that it's nice and flat, not where it's concave and we're not matching all of those points, and kind of almost sewn a bowl, if that makes sense. I mean, it can work. We can flatten those things out. Okay, let's go ahead and press this. So remember, keep pressing. And there are ways in our lives that we can kind of press things in order. So we might have different aspects of our lives that are just a little bit askew, and we can go ahead and take a moment and, you know, maybe clean out that little junk drawer that we have. And we might even discover some little treasures as we kind of press our lives, you know, into order. Okay, let's go ahead and do a 1/4 inch seam here on our other side of the sky part of this radiating shine block. Okay, so here we go. So we've got these matched up. I matched my 90-degree angle. I had my dog ears hanging off the sides. Now, what else can help you shine? By going out and being active and seeing other people, getting their energy in your life too, being part of groups. Okay, now we just need to sew these 2 triangles onto these edges. And here, we're wanting to actually go ahead and match up these triangle points right here. And remember, your triangles can get a little wonky at times. So you want to go ahead and build this out with that consistent 1/4 inch seam. So consistency can make us shine too, right? If we have consistency in our lives and just kind of have that consistent rhythm that we do in our lives to kind of have that what we're wanting to accomplish. So that consistency can also bring us joy and bring us light. Okay, here we go. So let's go ahead and press that out. Okay, hi Lynette, how are you? It's so good to see you guys. I just really love you guys so much. All right, let's go ahead and put this right sides together. Let's match up that triangle right here, and we're going to want to go ahead and bring this through the sewing machine, 1/4 inch seam. So you're sewing 4 of these units for the Shine quilt block. So 4 of these are built together, and that's what brings you to the different radiating rays of this Shine block from a square of triangles. It's amazing how we can just take triangles and rectangles and squares and create something that looks unique. But we have building blocks that we're building on and we're radiating outward, right? So here, let's go ahead and press this. Okay, now let's go in and actually sew the elements of this. So we have this right here in the center. We are going to put these rectangles on either side, and once again in the pattern you're going to want to make sure these are squared up and the appropriate size. I am also going to make sure that my dog ears or my extra threads are kind of pulled off here, so I don't have to worry about those as I am constructing the block together. Okay, so let's go ahead and take our half square triangles, put it at the top and the bottom of the rectangle that we have here. If we have sewn everything together consistently, we've got a consistent width between our half square triangles and this right here. And we want the length of this rectangle to be the exact same size as our triangle there. So you want to make sure as you are constructing this to go back and make sure that your measurements and your stitching have come out right. If not, you might have something a little bit wonky and you might need to just correct a tiny bit of stitching or something. So double checking can definitely help make your seams accurate. Let's go ahead and sew this half square triangle on the top of these. Whoops, this goes outways. There we go. I had that turned around backwards. Okay, so let's go ahead and put a little bit of a match right here, and we're sewing the top and bottom of the Shine quilt block sides with those half square triangles. So I'm going to bring this over here and I'm going to add this half square triangle down here on the lower part of the rectangle and the rays that are coming out. So this is going to give our sun the shape of a sun, right? Okay, and I'm string feeding this together so that you guys can go ahead and see that even though you're doing a quilt block like this, it can actually come together pretty quickly. And if you feel like your seams are not that accurate 1/4 inch, you can go ahead and make sure that you're slow it down just a little bit so you're getting that consistent 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so let's go ahead and match this one up right here. And we're going to go ahead, and I'm also matching, and I'm notching this right here. You can see that seam allowance right here. I'm going to go ahead and match that and notch and nest those seams together. And you can stick a pin wherever you need to reassure yourself that you're going to have your seams matched. Okay, so now, okay, here we go. We almost have this block complete. We have one block left on the quilt right now, but we will be doing the sew along again. This on Friday of this week, I am actually going to sew the Shine quilt block and show you guys the tutorial of making it for the Live Well Live Strong quilt that is 20 by 20 inches. So this has the foundation paper piecing all behind these blocks. So I'll show you how to construct this with the foundation paper piecing. Okay, let's go ahead. We have these units all ready. I'm going to set that aside. And right now what we need to sew is these portions of our quilt to the center blocks right there. Okay, once again, now we've got some tricky corners to match up here. So let's look at matching our points. Hi Jane, how are you today? You know, I love this burnt orange. It is actually, this solid fabric is actually called macaroni and cheese. Isn't that funny? We are going to put these right sides together. And I don't know, it just kind of makes me feel differently about the fabric knowing that it's macaroni and cheese is the name. Although the yellow is actually a solid called Sunshine. Okay, now we're wanting to make sure that this point matches up. So once again, this is a sampler quilt, so we're trying to build our skills as we stitch along. I am going to stick a pin right in the top of that intersection, just right there, and I'm going to match it straight through here. And I want to, and you can see that pin is going right through the center of that fabric, and it's just perpendicular to the fabric itself. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I've got that matched, is I'm going to actually take pins because I want this point to match. And I've got this stuck through. I'm going to put my pins on either side of this quilt block where of the center point, and I'm going to reassure, kind of frame in where I want that to match. I'm going to take out this pin that's sticking all the way through, and I'm going to pin it right at that point. I'm also going to feel. I'm going to feel right here. I'm going to feel if those seams are matching up, because you can usually feel that if it's not quite right. Let's go ahead and put, whoops, sorry guys. Let's go ahead and put a pin on either side of this. You can see that I have actually properly sewed this quilt block together because I have matching units right here of this 12.5 inches. So let's go ahead, put this under the needle, and we're going to sew at that 1/4 inch seam. But what's more important than the 1/4 inch seam is that we intersect this stitching right here. If not right at the center of it, we want to just go one hair over to the right exterior side because we want those points to match up. So let's go ahead and put this through the sewing machine and see if I have some matching points here live. Okay, so we're going to bring this through. I'm going to kind of slow down as I match up here because I don't want to shift my fabric. I want to go through that intersection and then come back down on the other side. And I definitely want a consistent seam length here. All right, here we go. Okay, let's go ahead and take out our pins and see if we actually have a match. So these are the things that you're going to want to do. And that looks absolutely perfect. Whoop. Let's go ahead and press this, because it always looks better when it's pressed. So pressing can definitely help any quilter, and I press constantly as I quilt and go. So you can see how beautiful those seams look right there. You can actually see them, and it's just absolutely beautiful. I do love the contrast of the colors, and I think that's what's really important. No matter what color that you're doing here, you do want that consistent contrast of your colors as you're building out your block. So So let's go ahead. Whether you're doing yellows and oranges, I've seen beautiful shine blocks in pinks and purples and so many other shades. Once again, I want these points to match up. So I'm going to go ahead and stick a pin in the intersection right there, and I'm going to match it right all the way through. I'm going to hold this upright, and this is a great example. So I've got this coming right here, and I'm holding this. You can see right here that it might have been one of these last triangles that I sewed on, that my everything, let's go ahead and match up these corners. So I am going to make this work because we're not going to re-sew this unit here. We want to be able to make things work. So you can see right here that I have a little bit more. This is a little bit higher than this side right here. This was one of the last triangles that I sewn on with you guys. And I am going to just give myself a little bit of that hair of yellow to show through. So if you have something that isn't just quite matching up, there might be where your triangles went a little wonky, and it is easy to do. It's so easy. You might just be a hair of a line off, and you can see that right there. So what I want to do is kind of respect that area, but I'm going to sew with it. So if you have made mistakes, you can compensate for it. And let's go ahead and match this up and make sure that's laying nice and flat, and it's not going to be off center. I didn't measure this after I did my complete match there. So let's go ahead and do our 1/4 inch seam. It's okay if this isn't perfectly straight. What's more important is that we have this point match up. You can compensate for this in other ways. So let's go ahead and pull this out, and we can give that just a slight of a little bit of a stretch. Okay, right under the sewing machine needle, and let's do a consistent 1/4 inch. Remember, we're really wanting to match, come straight through that intersection of our seams, as that will help us match these. I'm feeling this, and it feels as if everything is matched up as I've kind of shifted and come down. I have my needle in the down position, and I'm just making sure if I need to stop, I can. So when my sewing machine stops, it stops with the needle in the down position, which if you need to, go ahead and rotate on the side of your machine so that comes back down and it won't shift as you're stitching. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this. Now, there's a few things I can check here. So you can see I've got my 1/4 inch seam. I do have some extra fabric showing right there. What we want to do is we want to double check and measure how things are looking. Let's see if we've got a matching seam allowance. So we do have a match. So even though I'm just slightly off right there, it is important to have that match. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring this down and bring this over here. And I guess I could have actually sewn that a little bit closer, but that's okay. Now, what's important to do is we want to make sure we've got 18.5 inches, and that will help us know. Oh, I'm sorry, this is 24. There's different sizes of block. This is a 24.5 inch quilt block. So I've got my 24.5 inches right here. Let's check that the other side is 24.5 inches. So here we go. Let's go ahead and see. And I've got another 24.5 inches. So that's perfect to then match up with these two sides. And we're once again going to just match our points. So you can see here that we've got a great shine block. I'm not going to finish sewing these because we already have a finished block for you. I'll sew these off camera, but once again, matching up these points, matching up the points right here. I guess we could pin this because there are some tips here. So once again, as we sew these long lengths onto the side of the quilt block, we're going to want to make sure that that center point matches. So we're going to stick a pin at the top of that intersection right there. We're going to stick a pin in the same symmetrical spot through it. We want to match these up. Okay, so we've got that pin just kind of horizontally floating through there. You can see what that looks like, and it coming out on the other side. I'm going to put pins on either side of this. So by shining and having our points match, we can shine a little brighter, and sometimes we might not have all of our points matching, right? So I've got either side pinned on either side. I'm now going to bring in my center pin and pin that right up to the center. Now on these, I need to make sure that we're matching this unit right here, and we're going to put that right sides together. We're going to nest our seams. You could have your seams completely open if you like, but you can see how the seam allowances are going opposite directions, and I'm nesting them. Then bring this over, and once again, we have rather another seam allowance here to match. We want to go ahead and nest these right here and pin that. Yes, you know what, Jane, this really is a good skill building block that you can transfer these skills to absolutely anything. Once again, match these seams. And it really, and when you're making larger scale blocks, which in modern quilting, we are looking at, you know, some really large scale quilts and blocks, and match these right over here. So then I'm going to do my 1/4 of an inch seam and consistently come down. But let's go ahead and flip the camera, because we do have a quilt block that is completely finished here. That's 18.5 inches square. And I just think it's so important that we shine in life, that we feel good about the order that we have in our lives, and that there's so many different ways that we can shine. We can shine by feeding our souls with good things, because garbage in, garbage out. We can shine by having good, clean, ordered order in our lives. So those are the kind of things that we want to do by having a healthy, consistent rhythm. So anyways, I can't wait to work on my shine goals this next week. I'm going to be doing some spring cleaning, get that refrigerator extra smelling fresh and everything else. And I'm going to be doing some extra cleaning and organizing, and hopefully that'll be in my fabric and my quilting studio. Love you guys tons. It's so good to see you guys. Can't wait to see you on Friday at noon, and we'll be working on the Live Well Live Strong quilt in the Shine foundation paper piecing. We'll see you guys later, and have a great day, and be sure to shine this week and share your light with others. Have fun. Bye-bye.